This book was so dangerous that critics called it written out of hate, yet it secretly influenced presidents, shaped Silicon Valley billionaires, and sparked political movements that are reshaping America today. But what ideas were so powerful, they terrified the establishment. When Atlas Shrugged was published in 1957, the critical establishment savaged it mercilessly. The New York Times dismissed it as execrable claptrap, while other reviewers called it a nightmare and pages of ideological frenzy. Yet despite this critical hostility, something extraordinary happened. Readers embraced the book with passionate intensity. It sold over 100,000 copies in its first year and has since sold more than 8 million copies worldwide. But here's what makes this relevant to your life in 2025. This book predicted today's political battles. Politicians from Ronald Reagan to Paul Ryan cited its influence. Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan was a member of Rand's inner circle for decades. Silicon Valley entrepreneurs from Jeff Bezos to Travis Kalanick credited the book with shaping their worldview. When tech billionaires defend free markets against government regulation, when politicians debate wealth redistribution, when you hear debates about individual rights versus collective good, you're witnessing Atlas Shrugged's influence in real time. The novel created a cultural phenomenon that transcended literature, creating a stark divide between popular impact and intellectual acceptance that rages today. Academic literary circles continued to ignore or condemn it, while millions found philosophical ammunition for beliefs they couldn't articulate. Are you living in Atlas Shrugged's world right now? This polarization reflected the book's uncompromising message. Atlas Shrugged wasn't simply entertainment, it was a philosophical manifesto wrapped in an epic narrative, a passionate defense of individualism and free market capitalism that challenged the collectivist trends of its era. In a time when many intellectuals embraced various forms of socialism and government control, Rand presented a radically different vision, that rational selfishness, not altruistic sacrifice, was the foundation of human flourishing. The year 1957 was a pivotal moment in American history. The Cold War was intensifying, with the Soviet launch of Sputnik shocking Americans into realizing they were no longer technologically superior. The specter of nuclear annihilation hung over daily life, while McCarthyism had created an atmosphere of suspicion and ideological conformity. Domestically, the post-war economic boom was creating unprecedented prosperity, yet many intellectuals questioned whether material success was morally justified. Into this charged atmosphere, Rand launched her literary bombshell. While other 1950s novels like On the Road and The Organization Man critiqued American materialism and conformity, Atlas Shrugged celebrated individual achievement and defended the moral right to pursue one's own happiness. It was a book perfectly calibrated to appeal to successful Americans who felt guilty about their prosperity and intellectually isolated by the prevailing cultural winds. The novel resonated particularly with business leaders and entrepreneurs who felt under siege from expanding government regulation and social pressure to sacrifice for the common good. Here was a philosophical framework that not only justified their success, but celebrated it as a moral virtue. The book provided intellectual ammunition for those who believed that individual achievement, not collective action, was the engine of human progress. Ayn Rand's personal story gave her philosophy authentic power. Born Alisa Zinovievna Rosenbaum in 1905 in St. Petersburg, Russia, she witnessed firsthand the devastating consequences of collectivist ideology. Picture this. Her father's prosperous pharmacy was confiscated during the Bolshevik Revolution, plunging her middle-class family into poverty and desperation. She watched as individual initiative was crushed under the weight of state control, as productive citizens were vilified as enemies of the people, and as economic collapse followed the destruction of private property rights. What would you do if everything your family built was suddenly declared theft? In 1926, at age 21, she escaped to America with little more than the clothes on her back and a burning determination to warn the world about the horrors of collectivism. She changed her name to Ayn Rand and headed to Hollywood, where she worked as a screenwriter and began developing her philosophical ideas through fiction. Her early novels, We the Living and The Fountainhead, explored themes of individualism versus conformity, but it was Atlas Shrugged that would become her magnum opus. If you're finding this exploration of one of literature's most controversial masterpieces fascinating, make sure to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the great books that shaped our world. Your subscription helps us continue bringing you these detailed literary analyses. Rand spent 12 grueling years writing Atlas Shrugged, often working 18-hour days and sacrificing her health and personal relationships to complete her vision. She meticulously researched every aspect of industrial production, from steel manufacturing to railroad operations, conducting interviews with engineers, executives, and workers to ensure technical accuracy. Her husband, Frank O'Connor, often found her collapsed at her typewriter, exhausted from the physical and emotional toll of creating what she considered her life's most important work. Imagine the obsession required to sustain that level of intensity for over a decade. The writing process was complicated by Rand's perfectionism and her conviction that every detail mattered. She believed that philosophy should be integrated into every aspect of the narrative, that abstract ideas should be made concrete through compelling characters and dramatic situations. This approach required her to be simultaneously a novelist, philosopher, economist, and industrial researcher, a combination that nearly broke her spirit multiple times during the decade-plus composition period. Atlas Shrugged unfolds as a mystery wrapped in an epic thriller. The story is structured in 3 parts, each chronicling a stage in society's collapse as productive individuals mysteriously disappear. The central puzzle that drives the narrative forward is the identity of John Galt, whose name becomes a cultural catchphrase representing humanity's abandonment of reason and effort. Who is John Galt? People ask, when confronted with inexplicable problems, treating it as a rhetorical expression of helplessness. The novel opens with Dagny Taggart, vice president of Taggart Transcontinental Railroad, desperately trying to maintain her crumbling transportation empire as the economy disintegrates around her. One by one, the most capable minds in industry vanish without explanation. A brilliant inventor disappears after creating a revolutionary motor. A gifted industrialist abandons his factories. A talented artist walks away from fame and fortune. As these departures accelerate, society slides toward chaos. The mystery deepens when Dagny discovers clues pointing to a shadowy figure orchestrating these disappearances. She finds a cigarette stub bearing a dollar sign made from gold, a business card for a company that doesn't exist, and cryptic references to Galt's Gulch. Her investigation leads her through a landscape of collapsing bridges, failing factories, and increasingly desperate government attempts to control the crisis through regulation and force. The dramatic tension builds through spectacular disasters that showcase both human achievement and its destruction. Here's where Rand's storytelling becomes visceral. A tunnel collapse kills hundreds when bureaucrats override engineering expertise with political considerations. A revolutionary steel alloy is destroyed by envious competitors using government power to eliminate superior products. An oil field burns while politicians debate how to redistribute its wealth rather than extinguish the flames. Each disaster illustrates the consequences of placing political considerations above rational competence. What would you do if your expertise was overruled by incompetent authorities? Dagny Taggart emerges as one of literature's most compelling heroines, a woman driven by passionate love for her work and unwavering commitment to excellence. She fights to keep her railroad running, not from duty or altruism, but from pure joy in productive achievement. Her romantic relationships reflect her values. She's drawn to men who share her dedication to creating value rather than destroying it. Hank Rearden, the steel magnate who invents a revolutionary alloy, embodies the productive genius that Rand celebrates. Despite his extraordinary achievements, he's tormented by guilt, having internalized society's message that pursuing his own interests is morally wrong. His character arc involves learning to take pride in his accomplishments and reject the moral claims of those who contribute nothing while demanding everything. John Galt himself remains mysterious for most of the novel, more symbol than character, until his dramatic revelation. When he finally appears, he's revealed as a philosopher-inventor who has organized a strike of the mind, convincing the world's most productive individuals to withdraw their talents until society learns to respect individual rights. His underground community, hidden in a Colorado valley, demonstrates how rational people can cooperate without coercion when property rights are protected and voluntary exchange governs all relationships. The villains in Atlas Shrugged aren't traditional literary antagonists, but rather embodiments of different forms of collectivist thinking. Wesley Mouch represents bureaucratic incompetence, James Taggart embodies the hatred of ability, and Dr. Floyd Ferris illustrates the intellectual's betrayal of reason for power. These characters aren't evil in a conventional sense. They're ordinary people whose acceptance of destructive ideas leads them to sanction and participate in systematic destruction. The novel's philosophical climax comes through John Galt's radio address to the nation, a 70-page speech that many readers find either inspiring or insufferable. In this marathon exposition, Galt explains the moral foundation of rational selfishness, arguing that individuals have the right to exist for their own sake, rather than as sacrificial animals for others' benefit. He outlines the principle that voluntary trade to mutual benefit, not forced sacrifice, is the basis of proper human relationships. Want to dive deeper into the philosophical battles that shaped the 20th century? Hit that comment button below and let us know which controversial thinker or book you'd like us to explore next. These discussions matter more than ever in our current cultural moment. The speech crystallizes Rand's philosophy of objectivism through memorable declarations. I swear by my life and my love of it that I will never live for the sake of another man, nor ask another man to live for mine. This wasn't merely selfishness as commonly understood, but rather rational self-interest that recognizes reality, uses reason to guide action, and achieves genuine happiness through productive achievement rather than parasitic consumption. Galt's message challenged fundamental assumptions about morality that had dominated Western thought for centuries. Instead of duty to others as the highest virtue, he proposed rational pursuit of one's own flourishing. Instead of faith and feeling as guides to truth, he advocated reason and evidence. Instead of collective ownership as just, he defended individual property rights as the foundation of civilization. Rand pioneered the technique of making abstract ideas concrete through carefully constructed scenarios that illustrate principles in action. When characters face moral choices, the consequences follow logically from their philosophical premises, creating a seamless blend of story and argument that few authors have attempted. The three-part organization traces the stages of social collapse as rational principles are abandoned. First, the economy staggers, then productive individuals withdraw. Finally, the system collapses entirely. Atlas Shrugged's influence extends far beyond literature into real-world politics and economics. The book shaped a generation of free market advocates who saw in Rand's arguments intellectual justification for limiting government power and protecting individual rights. Federal Reserve Chairman Alan Greenspan credited Rand with teaching him that laissez-faire capitalism wasn't just economically efficient, but morally superior to alternatives. The novel's impact on business culture has been profound. Countless entrepreneurs cite it as inspiration for their careers, while business schools report that it remains popular among students despite faculty skepticism. The book's celebration of productive achievement resonates with individuals who create wealth and innovation, providing philosophical armor against critics who question the morality of profit and success. Share this video with anyone who's ever wondered why Atlas Shrugged remains one of the most influential yet controversial books in American culture. Understanding this novel is crucial for grasping the intellectual foundations of modern political debates. Modern political movements continue to invoke Atlas Shrugged's themes. Tea Party activists carried signs asking, "Who is John Galt?" while Silicon Valley entrepreneurs embrace Rand's vision of rational individuals creating value through voluntary cooperation. The book's analysis of how government intervention stifles innovation feels remarkably contemporary in an era of increasing regulation and bureaucratic control. Yet the novel remains as divisive as ever. Academic critics continue to dismiss it as crude propaganda, while millions of readers find in its pages a powerful defense of individual freedom and rational thinking. This ongoing controversy reflects the fundamental philosophical divide that Rand identified between those who believe individuals exist to serve collective purposes and those who insist that society exists to protect individual rights. So the next time someone tells you that success is selfish, that you should sacrifice for others, that individual achievement doesn't matter, remember Ayn Rand's warning. When the producers stop producing, who's left to hold up the world? The answer to "Who is John Galt?" might be closer than you think. That's a wrap on our exploration of Atlas Shrugged, one of the most powerful and polarizing novels ever written. If these deep dives into controversial masterpieces fascinate you, subscribe now and ring that notification bell. We're building a community of readers who aren't afraid to engage with challenging ideas, and your participation helps us create even better content. What classic should we tackle next?